Okay, so in this video, I'm going to go over the top 3 lists that are best performing for us in our 7-figure wholesale business from Direct Skip. So this is a website we use to pull data as well as skip trace data. And I can leave a link below if anyone wants to sign up. But the first one I'm going to go over is called the hidden equity list. So I'll just rewind a little bit. But when you go on Direct Skip, you can search by either zip code, state, city, or county. For this example, I'm just using a county in North Carolina, which is the market that we work in. But you can search by any of those 4 criteria that you'd like to. So again, I'm just going to use the county. As you can see, when you first search for the entire county, it's over 400,000 properties. And obviously we're not going to want to market to all those people. So this first list I'm going to go over is called the hidden equity list. Now, one of the nice things about using Direct Skip is they have these preset filters here, which you can easily select and just by their exact criteria. So we'll make a couple slight changes here, but typically you can just choose one of their filters here to save time. For example, if you wanted to pull a vacant list, you can just click on this button. It'll automatically target vacant properties that aren't listed on the market, which is very important. We typically don't want to target on-market properties. And so I'm going to go back to this one, which is the hidden equity list. This has performed very well for us. We got a bunch of deals closed from this year, last year, the year before. So basically the criteria of this list, these are the people that are typically left out of the standard high equity list that most people are pulling. Now we still pull that list as well, but it's nice to sprinkle this one in because we found that we get a lot of people that aren't already in our system, which is great for, marketing purposes. When you're not reaching out to the same people over and over again, you can get new, fresh leads into your system. So these are the preset criteria that they give you. The main thing that we're going to change based on our buy box is just add a few more properties here. So we like to add in townhomes. And again, you can go to characteristic filters. So I'll rewind here, click on characteristic filters. And this is where you can kind of filter based on the property type, size, lot size, all this other stuff. So we just go into property type and we like to do residential, single family, townhome, condominium, as well as mobile home. And then they typically already include duplex, triplex, and quad. So those are all the property types we go after. It's a total of 8. And again, it's duplex, so 2 to 4 units, duplex, triplex, quad. And then we also do residential general, which this is just some properties that might be left out of these other sections. And then we do single family, we do townhome, we do condos, and we do mobile homes. So that's that for the property criteria. And then the next section we would go in, so I can collapse this back up. Next section we would go through is the owner occupied section. So you can filter either by owner occupied, which is people that are living in the home. You can choose no, and that's going to be non-owner occupied, so absentee properties, or you can choose nothing here, and that's going to target just both, so owner occupied and absentee people. So for this example, I'll just do owner occupied, and then years owned, we're going to leave all this stuff the same. And then next is the sale information. So this shows you when you could target by the last sale price or the last sale date. We're going to leave that alone. Financing information, they have the mortgage recording date of 08 or before for this particular list. And then value filters. Now, you could use this if you want to filter the list down even more. So I'll show you an example. If we just apply these filters that we've already used so far, then let's see how much the list shrinks down. So from 400,000 originally, now it's all the way down to right about 59,000. So if we wanted to narrow it down even more, we could use one of these value filters. Typically, we like to use the assessed total value, and we like to do is less than or equal to 350,000. For us, typically, we're not targeting luxury homes or anything like that. So typically 350,000 or less gives us kind of the buy box that we're looking for. And as you can see, that pretty much cut it in half. So now it's down to 27,000. So for us, this would be a good size list to go ahead and pull. But again, we just chose this preset filter, which is hidden equity. We made a couple changes to the property type here, and then I filtered it down even more by using the assessed total value criteria right here. So that's the first list that we like to pull. And I'll go over the next 2 as well. And I'll leave all these criteria right here that you see here. I'll leave all these criteria in the description with the title for each list that we like to go after, top 3 lists. And so you can replicate it if you want to. So I'll go over the second best list for us right now. Okay, so this is my next favorite list that we like to go after. I call this one the old equity list, which is people that have bought the property before 2000 and bought it for less than or equal to 100,000. So these are typically people that have owned the home for over 20 years. They might be tired landlords, or they might just be owner occupied people that are looking to move on, maybe downsize or something like that because they've owned the property for so long. So these are all the criteria that we use. So this one's pretty simple. But another nice thing about direct skip is you can click here and you can save your criteria. So your custom criteria, you can save them here in my searches so that you don't have to fill this out every time. For example, if you were targeting a different county, you could just type it in and then click on one of your saved searches and the criteria would populate right here. So again, this was our last list that we went over. It gave us this many records. So I'm going to go ahead and click apply filters on this old equity list. And then we're going to see how many records it gives us. So this has been very effective for us. Like I said, in targeting people that are just kind of tired of the properties. They've owned them for over 20 years. They also purchased them for under 100,000. So typically there's a lot of equity there. So as you can see, this ended up with over 33,000 properties, almost 34,000. So again, if this list is too big for you, what I would recommend you do is go into the value filters down here and filter based on total value. So again, we like to do 350,000 or below. Depending on your market, it might be a little bit different. Obviously, if you're in a higher price market, you might raise that to 500, 600,000 or below. For us, this is kind of the sweet spot for like that first time home buyer price that we typically go after so that it gives us a bigger buyer pool. So I'll just click apply there and see what it does for us in terms of record size. I think we were right about 34,000 before, and now we're down to 23,000. So again, for us, that's a good size list. We like to pull around 20,000 at a time. And one important tip that I will mention for pulling data, a lot of people will recommend you buy in bulk and save money. That is true that you do save money, but at the same time, if you buy in bulk and your list is just sitting there and you're not marketing to it, because let's say maybe you don't have enough time, you don't have a big enough team yet to market to hundreds of thousands of records, then that data is just sitting there and it's essentially getting stale like a bag of chips. So, you know, you don't want it to just sit there and not be touched. So we like to pull data only when we need it. Typically, we pull weekly or biweekly. Every time our cold callers or our marketing SMS team runs out of data, then we'll buy a new list. But yeah, so this is it for this list. Ended up with 23,000 after changing this value filter. So that's it. And again, for this list, we're doing the same characteristic filters as before, the 8 property types that we like to go after. So I mentioned that in the first one. I won't go over it again. And then we're doing sale price less than or equal to 100,000. So you can find that by going into sale information right here, less than or equal to 100,000. And then sale date is before January 1st of 2000. So that's this list, which we call the old equity list. And I'll go over the number 3 list for us next. Okay, so the last list we like to target is the traditional high equity list. I mean, everyone preaches it for a reason. It does continue to work. I would recommend the first 2 lists I shared over this one in terms of effectiveness, but this list still works, tried and true, and it continues to work. So we have it saved here in our searches as NFEQ10. So those are just abbreviations that help us. But what that means is there's no filter on absentee versus owner occupied, which means we're including both. And then it has equity. EQ stands for equity. And then 10 stands for the years of ownership. So greater than or equal to 10 years owned. And so again, I reset this to 400,000 as the count with no filters. And so we're going to go ahead and apply these filters and see what that looks like. And we can narrow it down even further if you like. So one of the ways you can narrow it down is you could include just owner occupied with equity or just absentee with equity, for example. As you can see, this returned a pretty big list, 145,000. So I'd probably split this up a bit further. So there's 2 ways that we like to do that. Number 1, like I said, you could just target owner occupied, or we could just target absentee. For this example, let's see what happens if we do non-owner occupied, which would be absentee owners that aren't living in these homes. So we'll click non-owner occupied there, wait for it to load, and that cut it way down to 34,000. So that's looking much better. And then again, like I said, another way we can cut this down is using the assessed value. So I'll do that again, 350,000 here. Make sure you got the right number of zeros. And then we were at about 34. So let's see where that cuts us down to. That cuts it down to 22. So again, that's a good size list for us. So now we've cut this list down from what was a no filter equity list. Now it's a non-owner occupied equity list with 10 years of ownership and with the assessed value 350,000 or less. And again, this one down here just means it's not listed on the MLS. We always make sure to check that box, and it's just down here at the bottom under listing information. Just make sure you click not listed. And so then if you wanted to narrow this down even more, what we would like to do is increase the years owned. So most of the time, the longer someone's owned a property, typically that correlates with motivation. They might be a little bit more motivated to sell. So for us, we typically do the standard of 10 years or more. That gives us kind of a healthy balance of motivation. and equity. You could increase this if you wanted to narrow the list down even more. Right now we're at about 23,000. So if we went up to 15 years owned, now this is people that have owned the property for 15 years or more, as well as all the other criteria we just mentioned. Now this cuts it down to 15. So that's even smaller. And then you could even, I wouldn't go above 20 typically because the list might just be too small. But we can go from 10 to 15 to 20 if you want to continue to narrow the list down. So let's see. So this cuts it all the way down to 10,000. So it started at 34. Then we put in the value filter. Then we increased the years of ownership. And now we're looking at 10,000. So that's a very manageable list. And again, this is a non-owner occupied list, so absentee, that have owned the property for 20 years or more. They have 20% or more equity in the home. And the assessed value is 350,000 or less. So we would go ahead and pull this list. With direct skip, all you have to do is click skip trace right here. You would title your list. So we would title it with the county name and then absentee equity with 20 years of ownership or more. So the way I would title that would be Mecklenburg is the county we're targeting, and then I would do AB for absentee, EQ for equity, and 20 for years owned. And then all you have to do is click save, takes you to the next page, and you can go ahead and buy the list. So that's that. I'll link to direct skip down below if you guys want to check it out. If you sign up using that link, you get 500 free records. So it's a good deal. You could try with like a vacant list or just a small segment of one of these lists if you want to try it out and see how you like it. The skip rate is 12 cents per skip. You can buy in bulk to get it cheaper. And those credits never expire, which is nice. So you can just leave credits in your account and you can skip trace whenever rather than buying the data and letting it sit there. The credits are the ones that's sitting there, not the data. So that's nice. And they have a bunch of other plans as well. But like I said, 500 free records if you want to try them out. And I'm going to leave all the criteria for these lists that we went over in the description below. So thanks for watching.